welcome back to another episode of Creative Writing Advice with me, JJ Barnes. If you don't know me, I am the author of How to Write a Story, which is out now on Amazon. I take you from the beginning of your story through to the end. I cover the midpoint and everything else in between, characters and world building. I also do editing afterwards, so hopefully with this book I will be able to inspire you and give you the confidence to get the story out into the world that you've always wanted to write. Over here on YouTube, I'm doing a series where I take a piece of writing advice and I break it down. I'm hoping it will help. I'm hoping that by talking about it, and I have conversations with people after the videos as well, it will just make everything a bit easier for you and a bit more accessible and clearer. And yeah, I want you to be able to write that story, so I'm hoping that this will help. So today what I'm talking to you about is why your protagonist shouldn't be an expert. Now, obviously, you're thinking, well, the protagonist, they need to be special. I've talked before. What about your protagonist is special? They need to be a powerful witch, or they need to be a strong fighter, because it's their story. You want them to be, interesting and the best in the story, the best character in the story, because they're your protagonist. They're who you're riding with. They're who you're invested in. The problem is, if they start your story as an expert, they have nowhere to go. They need to be able to grow and change through your story, which means they need to be able to get better. Also, if they're an expert, your readers or your audience probably isn't an expert. They're not going to be an expert magician or witch or wizard. They're not. They're not going to be like one with the Force. They won't have an amazing, incredible knowledge of the world that your character is inhabiting and exploring and working in. Because we're just people. We're living normal lives, and we read and watch our entertainment to experience things. And if your protagonist already knows everything, there's no access for your audience. They're cut out, they're excluded, and you want your audience to be one with your protagonist, to be experiencing your story with them, to be sharing what they're going through. And if your protagonist has this incredible wealth of knowledge and understanding of the story world that you're taking your audience with, there's no way to invite your audience in. How are they going to be told without info dumping? And info dumps are boring. The only way you could do it is to just list everything that protagonist already knows, which is unnatural. It's not entertaining. So you don't want to do that. So your protagonist needs to, if they're in a world of magic, and they know they're in a world of magic, a fantasy realm, then, your audience is already a little bit behind them, but you can still introduce everything to them by making your protagonist somebody who needs to be taught about whatever it is. So Harry in Harry Potter is not an expert wizard. So when he is taken to King's Cross, he has to be shown how to get through to the platform, just like your audience would want to know how. When he gets to Hogwarts, he has to be taught and told about the history of the building, the history of the magic, everything that's going on. Has to have the rules of Quidditch explained to him. Because if he already knew all of this, if he was Ron and already knew everything, or Hermione and had studied all summer, then your audience wouldn't have a reason to learn about it. And your audience wants to. We want to know about your magical world. We want to know about the rules of the magic. We want to know about the techniques used in your fighting championship. We want to know all that stuff, but we don't want to be taught it. We're not here to be educated like in school. Like, if we want to be taught with a textbook, then we can read a textbook. We can study a subject that will improve us intellectually like that. But we come to you for entertainment, not to be lectured. So you want to give us the information in an entertaining way. So Harry having to learn Quidditch, you have to go through it with him. You have to experience the first time riding a broom. You have to learn the rules of the game at the same rate he does. And it kind of connects you to him then. It means that you're one with him. You don't know. And you'll find this quite often. So for instance, I've started reading, I've nearly finished a book, and I'm not going to talk about who wrote it or anything because I don't want to slam other writers, but I honestly I don't know if it's the first. I thought it was the first in a series, basically. This is my point. I thought the book that I started reading was the first in a series. Everything, I'm sure it said it was, but anyway, it could be my mistake, but it's still relevant information. I'm pretty sure it's the first in a series. When I go into this book, from the very beginning of it, I felt like I was missing something. I didn't know how the ghosts were communicated. I didn't know about the Book of Magic. Nothing, because the woman I'm writing with, the protagonist of this book, already knows it all. She has to learn some stuff along the way, which I'm getting to sort of take part in. But this whole experience of what she's doing, the magic she's using, it's written about as if I already know. And I don't. So this is quite a problem if you do jump into a series, and it's same with TV as well. Like, jumping into a series of TV midway, you're boggled because you've not been introduced. The first few episodes of anything are setting it up, telling you about the magical lore, if it's something like Charmed or Supernatural. It's explaining the relationships between the people. It's explaining this world that you are diving into, and that's what the first few chapters of a book are, or the first few books of a series are. It's setting you up in this world that your characters are living in, and introducing it to you, the audience person, through the character who also has to learn about it. So if you go in with an expert, so you go in on book 3, the character already knows everything there is to know about this world, and they are having adventures within it. So you as the audience person, like me reading this book, you're playing catch up all the time. You don't feel connected to the character because you're like, well, I don't know why they're doing this. I don't understand what's going on because I haven't been shown. And if your protagonist is an expert in the field, your audience will have no reason to learn what they're doing and why, because they're just going to do it. They're going to use the magic and they're going to explore the world and they're going to use the techniques that they need to use. Have a mentor figure, a character who takes them. It's your Gandalf taking the hobbits along on their journey. It's Hagrid teaching Harry about what the magic and Voldemort and all of that sort of stuff. A mentor character is the person who teaches your protagonist and therefore your audience about the world you're writing in. And it's very, very useful. It keeps your audience connected to your protagonist. It feels like they are with them. They're part of this story. They haven't been excluded and cut out from it by a world of information that they don't have. And it avoids an info dump. You don't want an info dump. You don't want to be taught and educated and have to memorize information. Learning as you go with your protagonist, it feels natural and easy, and you hold it better because you're experiencing it as they go. You only learn the information as they need it. You haven't been told in advance how to get through the platform 9 3/4. You weren't told that at the beginning of the story, so the rest of the story will make sense. You learn that as he needs to learn it. You go with him as he goes through it. I think that makes sense. Give your character a mentor. Make sure they aren't the expert. Give them a reason to learn. Introduce your character to things in a way to introduce your audience to things so they are not overwhelmed by a constant stream of information, and your story makes sense and they'll feel connected to your protagonist. So, I hope this has been helpful to you. Thank you very much for watching another one of my videos. If you go to my website, which is jjbonds.co.uk, over there you'll find links to all of my work. If you subscribe to this series, I put out a video every Monday, Wednesday and Friday at 9:30 in the morning. And there's also a whole back catalogue of videos on here. If you're doing homeschooling at the minute with your kids, I have my Creative Writing for Kids series. There's a link on the homepage of this channel where I teach these sort of things, but for children, with references to more children's things. I talk about Disney films and things like that to make it so that children will hopefully have an access to this wonderful creative writing thing that we do, and it's really good for them. It's educational, but it's really fun too. And what else? Comment on this video. Tell me, do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Do you have a first installment of a book or series or chapter, whatever, where you go straight in with an expert protagonist but still learn what you need to know along the way in an entertaining way? Because And so these aren't rules that I'm giving you, they're not laws, they're not strict. The wonderful thing about creative writing is that it's so fluid and it's so free, and there are so many variants of everything I tell you that work for different people in different circumstances. Basically what I'm trying to do is just teach you what works for me and why. Because I know that this advice works because it's the advice I use. So it's the techniques that I use. It's how I write my stories, and I hope that it will be helpful to you too. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll be back again soon. Bye.